Hi, everybody. John Ellis here, and I have the privilege of being the chairperson for the LSEDC this year. And so I've got my teammates up here. Well, I have Joe Perry right here, and right here they are, Michael Van Buskirk and Jackie McCormick-Kenyu. And so we are really excited about being able to do a brief but very hopefully informative presentation to you on what we've got going on here. And I believe we've got some slides that are going to go with this as well. So we wanted to start off by just saying thank you. Thank you for not only being great at communicating with us, but also for being actively involved with what we are trying to do with the city as far as growing business, growing jobs, and growing the community. And so with that, let's go ahead and click. All right, I guess I can do it. I'm going to start out by just saying this is our board, and what you'll see in here is that we've really worked since last year. It's been about 18 months, I think, since we last were here, and we have our official report back into you here at the end of October. And so this is an intermediate time that we want to make sure that we're spending a little bit of time to giving you a little bit of an update. You'll see the people on the board here. The people in the blue box are the executive committee, and you'll see the representation from the different sectors of the community. You'll also see the people in the green outside with each of the different business partners, community partners being represented with the LSEDC right now. Very happy to have Dr. Buck and Erica Miller both on our board right now, and very active and very great at being partners with what our vision is and how we're working together with the board. Tonight we've got lots of great things that we're going to talk about. I think the biggest thing is that we really want to stay focused on what our job is to help you be successful and to help us be successful and to really work together and communicate well. We know great communities work when we've got great jobs, we're attracting great jobs, and we're finding ways to get those businesses and employers here. We have the same goal that you have. And so we have those as a priority. We want to maintain them as a priority, and we want to make sure that we're communicating on how we can continue to work with you on that. So I think this is just in general, this really kind of outlines the basics of our relationship on here. And then in addition, our additional core relationships that we're really specifically focused on with the Summit Technology programs and the campus over at the Missouri Innovation Campus, the Real World Learning Program with what Dr. Bonitson and Shannon Booth are doing there. And we've got exciting news that we want to share about that. And with the Workforce Alliance program of making sure that we're working together to enhance and grow that program. So with that, I'm going to just talk a little bit about some of the different activities that we've had on here. And I think some of these shots are from things that we've done with the Workforce Alliance, and then also I want to just recognize a little bit of time on here with what you've done out at the airport with Hangar 2 with your aeronautics program and everything. How impressive is that? And we were at an event out there just this last fall. I guess it was ribbon cutting on it, and got the tour of everything that's going on there. What an amazing resource to have that in our community. And I was just going through a quick tour there with Joel recently, and talking about how the students have the ability to participate in the programs, and the equipment that was able to be brought in for that is just such a great tool for the community, for us to be able to attract that up and coming and strong industry and keeping it as a priority in the community. So we were very much involved, very much engaged with helping promote anything and everything that can go on there. We've got quite a few other programs that we've been doing as well on a quarterly or a monthly basis, I guess is what I should say on here. And I think the biggest focus that we have is we're really trying to be very deliberate on how we can be leading the communication on the urgent, I guess the more relevant topics between education and economic development and just the business community, how we can be constantly talking about what's relevant now and how we can be working together and helping together. And so we're changing those, our subjects on a regular basis. A lot of them are open to more than just the EDC members, and we really would love to have great participation in each of those as well. I am going to also say that we are really excited about our announcement with a few of our additions to our team. And we've got Tina Chase is going to be an addition coming back. I know quite a few probably know her. She's been involved with the EDC for quite a long time. It was something that we've been working on and communicating with her for quite a while, and we're really happy to attract her back from the Platte County EDC up there. She'll be spending time there. And then we've got additions of Carol and Carrie Smithia, who are retired teachers that are going to be a part of our administrative team. We know that we're also going to be leaning on them to be helping us out with some of our social media, communication, and all of those things. And we have heard just such amazing things about them, and we feel very blessed to have them as a part of our team with that. I'm going to let Joe go ahead and speak up a little bit about some of the specifics on details that are going on in the community and some of the statistics.
Okay. Thank you, John. The great volunteers, to have 3 board members here and 2 board members up here, really goes to demonstrate what kind of easy job I would have in wanting to come back to Lee Summit and work in economic development. So I want to thank all of you for being here, these 3 and these 2. Really, in the world of economic development, I get really excited about vertical development. You know, the stuff that everybody likes to talk about. That is exciting, and we should be excited by it. The pipeline of projects coming to Lee Summit today in land development and vertical development is putting together boxes where people live and where businesses come to put down roots. That is what you hear a lot of. What I want to talk about in a little bit greater detail than these kind of projects that get a lot of ink are jobs. What goes into those boxes? How does that impact the parents of your students? How does that impact the ability to have more tax base associated with those buildings? When they become full of people and the right kind of jobs, they come with other investments. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time there, and I thought we would start by level setting ourselves with the metropolitan area. These are the numbers from the second quarter of the Kansas City Area Development Council. This is exactly what 18 counties produced in new jobs, in new payroll, square footage of buildings, and capital investment by companies bringing investment to Kansas City. That's 18 counties. We're 4.7% of the metropolitan population. So let's level set ourselves against 2 million people, right? So when you compare 18 counties bringing 631 jobs in the 2 projects we're going to talk about attracting to Lee Summit tonight, we're bringing in 152. You do the math. That's more than 4.7%. It's more like 4x. We're punching above our weight. And I couldn't be happier to come tonight with that news. I couldn't have said that in Q2 last year. We would have been at 0. This is really big deal. And you take that into payroll. You can see that in the 18 county, those 631 jobs came with almost $65 million worth of payroll. The 2 we're going to talk about tonight will bring in $13 million in payroll in their first year of production. That's exciting, but growing businesses that are already here is what a lot of us know is more than half the jobs that are going to be created in any community. So when we think about business expansion and retention of businesses and expanding those businesses, there's no better story than Mid-States distribution. I know Dr. Shelton came when this was before the council, and everyone has a vested interest in what do we have to do to attract these? There is a give and a take to that calculus. What we're looking at here is another $70 million worth of investment, 165 jobs retained, and 90 new jobs. They're purchasing the 38 acres, and you can see they're nearly doubling their physical plant. Well, that's exciting to me because when they came, they said, we need to grow. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be hard to stay in Lee Summit. This is where their customers are served by this existing plant. You can see where we are today. They could have gone anywhere with these jobs and with this new investment. Thanks to the state of Missouri and thanks to the City Council of Lee Summit, it's about less than 8% of the capital investment they're going to make is going back into incentives for this. And what do we get in return? Almost 50% more payroll and another $70 million going on to the tax rolls. I think those are wins that we would like to see more of. And so I wanted to highlight these three. Two of them are new businesses coming in, and then one of them is a business expanding. So pipeline, I'll just tell you that last year in the whole metropolitan area, the Missouri Partnership and the LSEDC were not sending us very many deals, and that was nationwide. At the beginning of the year, we started to see an uptick in those, and we started to see about one a month as demonstrated by this chart. But look what happened in June. We had 6, and these are only the ones that we thought were appropriate for Lee Summit. There were actually 11 projects brought to us. We only went for the 6 that we thought matched up with our collective community goals, including your stated goals. The other thought I thought would be important for you all to think about tonight is then, well, when we picked 6 out of 11, what's the whole pie? And I thought it might be interesting to you. This is the Q2 chart from LSEDC of how do the 63 active projects that have crossed my desk in the last 16 months, what kind of projects are there? And everyone always comes to me and says, when's Lee Summit going to get a headquarters moving here from Boston or San Jose? Well, if you can see on this chart, 2 of the 63 are headquarters. Those are the gold standard that everybody wants, but they're a very small piece of the pie. The big piece of the pie that all of our projects, of our wins that we can say for this year came out of the red, which is manufacturing. The second biggest you can see are data centers. That's where you get to about 60% of the total pie, and you can read the rest. Quickly, and I'm almost done, I just wanted to say a couple of things about, well, is the juice worth the squeeze? When we look at what we have to give as a community in order to attract these jobs, how are we doing? Well, in the nation, for 10 years between 2013 and 2023, this is from a slide that I used where Dr. Buck was one of our speakers last year. And we brought the 2 biggest employers. You're one of the 2 biggest employers. And we talked about where are jobs coming from. Well, this slide demonstrates to you where did Lee Summit win and lose jobs in various sectors. By average, in Lee Summit, you have the lowest paid employee tops at the top of this chart and the highest paid at the bottom. Lee Summit grew by 11.5% in this 10-year period, and it's pretty, it had COVID in it. There was a big blip in the middle, but so did the nation that we're comparing ourselves to. This is slightly higher than the metropolitan area and about even with the nation. And the red bar, if everyone always wants to know, well, what was the red bar? That's information, and likely that's the impact of the Cerner/Oracle deal, right? And so that's also a metropolitan issue, and I have since verified that in fact. But what you do see on this is in the last 10 years where Lee Summit has really got into the game of attracting employers, that we're attracting employers very heavily to the bottom higher paid quartiles of the chart. And I think that's important. I think that tells us we're not just attracting jobs, we're attracting jobs that pay a living and if not a very good wage. How are we doing administratively and organizationally? You're the second highest investor in the Lee Summit EDC. We don't take that lightly, and we don't take it for granted. And so part of what we should be doing as your partner is attracting private investment to fund these efforts, not just asking you or the city or the other school districts for it. So what we're demonstrating here is I was given that mandate 16 months ago, and we're delivering on it. This is the chart since the first of the year of how we're attracting new investors on the private side into investing in the work of the Lee Summit EDC. And then financial stewardship. Well, we created a reserve policy this year, and we beat it. We created an in-kind policy, which reduced the amount of revenues that we need from public and private sources, and it produced, and we think that that was a win. We purposefully spent the first year reevaluating our needs instead of just hiring into positions that would have made the activities easier. That allowed us to refill our reserves that we had spent down the 2 years before. And now, as John mentioned, we're able and are investing in human resources and ones we think that matter. I appreciate the time tonight more than you'll ever know. I hope I didn't go too far over, but that is what we wanted to, and we wanted to leave time for Erica Miller and to Dr. Buck to speak to this because they spend so many hours with us at the board before we just turned it back over to you, Chairman.
Well, I just wanted to speak to the fact that it's been just a joy to get to know the board, and it's nice to see when our city and our district and the council, all the people working together to increase revenue, increase jobs in our community are working together. And so one of the things that I've really appreciated is the partnership with the Workforce Alliance, and all the new businesses that are coming in, and the ability for those new businesses, as they're working with Dr. Bonison and Shannon Booth, to increase internships for our students, to increase on-the-job training, scholarship opportunities, a variety of things for students at STA and Herndon. And so just it's been incredible to be a part of the board and just learn all about the things that are happening in our city and the growth, and how us as a district are a part of that, and we are such a great partnership. So kudos to you, Joe and John and Mike and Jackie, for all the work that you're doing to support the growth in our city and with our district.
I'd only add that we have over 4,000 kids last year qualify for free or reduced lunch. That means we have a lot of families that are underemployed or unemployed. So every time we bring in jobs, it makes a meaningful impact on our kids, and that's why we're here. So I'm happy that we're part of this again. And I also want to thank Michael Van Buskirk there. So if we had a restart, right, and for over a year we met every 2 weeks, and that's just as a board, and Mike worked a lot beyond that. So we're to this point now with Joe at the helm and John leading the way for the board. A lot of it's built on Michael and Jackie here because they put in a yeoman's amount of work over the past 2 years, and I really want to thank you for that.
If I could, Dr. Buck, I didn't give the specifics. I should have. The two manufacturers are both plastic manufacturers. They're both going to be at the Lee Summit Commerce Center. The one that has already been in the paper will bring 90 jobs at an average wage of $83,215. That is about $10,000 over the average Jackson County wage. The other manufacturer that needed no incentives and is just coming from the Great Lakes region will also bring in almost 90 jobs at an average wage of nearly $60,000. And they're occupying about 40% of the space that the larger manufacturer is. But then the third one that we talked about in Mid-States, that's another 90 jobs, and that will be nearly $60,000 per job also. These are quality, livable wage jobs that we're attracting.
Thank you. Board Member Sparks?
All right, I have a few questions. First, let me just say, Dr. Ellison, Mr. Ellison, John, it's always good to see you. I'm going to always recognize what you've done with giving us our second location for Great Beginnings, and so thank you for helping us with that transaction. My first question is, I know years ago when I first joined the board in my first tenure, the conversations were about racially diversifying your board. I'm curious to know, Vice President Miller, was that part of have you been part of any of those conversations since you've been on there as a board member, on if that has been a discussion?
That has been a discussion, yes. They have worked to try to, there's a process for board members to be appointed, and they've been working through the process, but also working through who are the best candidates, where do we find these candidates, asking other board members to bring in candidates that they think would be a good fit. And so I myself have recommended a couple of people and that I thought would help to diversify the board as well. The person that I was recommending was not interested at the moment because she just took on a big position at the hospital, but yes, that has been a part of the discussion.
Okay, that's good.
I'll add to that as well, is that I would love to have the community encourage people to apply for those openings when they're available, because we've posted those and we're basically trying to reach out to people that we know. But if you know others that are interested in being engaged, it's an application process that we just finished actually on that, so please encourage involvement.
Absolutely. So from that new pool, from the applications that have just now closed, are there any persons of color that are applicants?
There were none.
Okay.
And so what we did have is better represented the last two times since I've been at the lead. We've had more women apply than ever before. And there is a requirement that you're an investor for 3 years, your company, before you nominate anyone to the board. And so we have a number of, as you saw, more companies now than we had before. So that helps us in that regard. And I believe that the more voices that are represented at any table, the better decisions you get. And we're working on all sorts of diversity and making sure our voices are representative of the total community. So those are the two things that we have to do, is get out in front of that and absolutely tell people, become an investor today, even at a low level. That starts the 3-year clock ticking. And we can encourage people to nominate people that look like our community that we're serving.
I appreciate that. I would just encourage us to make sure that the process that is in place, that it is not creating barriers for that access to be able to join the board, because I know that this has been a conversation that's been at least 5 years of going on. And so I really would like to see the progress in that area, especially with knowing that this district is your second largest contributor and the fact that we represent more than just a few demographics.
Yeah, and we've just also recently restructured our dues structure as well to make that more available to the individual investors and people. It's easier to get involved.
I appreciate that. Another question that I have is, just in I guess, full transparency, can you put a number on all of the great things that are happening in the district? What does that mean for revenue for LSR7 itself?
Yeah, interestingly, we just were able to do that calculus for the city of Lee Summit. It's a little more difficult for us right now, and I was reflective of that when we were on our way to prepare this for you tonight, that if I could work with the administrative staff of R7 to see what the numbers come in. It's easy for me to find the city's numbers from the county, And I need to just get to that part of Lee Summit that is also LSR7 and see if there's a way for us to parse those out so I can deliver the same information to you. What we found when we did it for the city, which isn't going to be exactly parity for R7's portion of that, is that in the last 8 years when we have been doing more job attraction deals, that the amount of revenue per person as the population grew in Lee Summit had increased 13.3% higher per person revenues to the city of Lee Summit than before, when the city was not engaged in those activities. So I can say that, there is a relationship of the city of Lee Summit having higher tax revenues per person, and then to be fair and clear, the inflation adjusted increase was 51.2%. So we didn't want to lead with that because we don't think that that's a real number. You can't spend an inflation adjusted numbers 8 years later. But we did do that analysis for the city, and I'd be delighted to work with the R7 staff. There's someone here that knows how to parse those numbers.
Actually, what we would do is turn you right to Ryan Elam, because when it's an incentive package, you can see it. They have to build that in, and it'll break it out by taxing entity. So, for example, when we had Skinnell 5-6 years ago, that greenfield, Mike, you might remember these numbers better, I'm off the top of my head, $1,000 in tax revenue for LSR7. After it was built, it was 6 figures. So if there's no tax incentive, it's really hard for us to parse that out, other than going and looking at parcels. If it involves multiple, you look at them and look at year over year and see what the taxes is. You can pull up any parcel on Jackson County's website. So it's either A, it's going to be in the incentive package that the city brings forward, or you're going to pull it up by parcel and see over time. And sometimes a new project will redraw parcels, just like we did for an elementary building recently.
Right.
So to that, I got more questions, but to that point, Dr. Buck, so can we get a number? Can we get a dollar figure on what these new jobs and these projects have created in revenue for LSR7?
So it wouldn't be the jobs, because that's going to go into the state. I can't tease it out because then that gets divvied out by their general revenue on income tax. But we can on property tax. Joe can do that. And like I said, Joe, I'm just going to turn Joe to Ryan Elam at the city, and he can get those numbers from the city.
Okay, okay, perfect. Thank you. I only have 2 more questions. For our students in LSR7, I know that you mentioned that, your job is development and things of that nature. Our job is to educate students and to see that they're succeeding once they graduate. My question is can you tell me exactly how many students are being impacted by the EDC and our contribution?
How many students? I'm having a hard time to try to figure out how to draw that down to a student level, other than, because in my world, I think about project cost and those kind of metrics that lead and then the job side. What I can say is if you look at an average household size and you divide the population of your district by about 2.43, we could come up with a number of new jobs that those students now have access locally to, that the households that they're in, and come up with a number of students per household that would be impacted by the new jobs. The other side of this, that as you were going through this, that I think is an interesting piece of information on the 2 job attractions. We went toward those 2 employers, and I met with those people personally 6 and 9 months respectively. And when we met with them on site, we talked about high quality education for the people that were going to be working there if they choose to live in this area. We talked about those kinds of impacts that go to students. And when you compare those 2 locations that those companies will be doing manufacturing in, those buildings were built for warehousing. The jobs that would have been there are about 165 collectively between the 2. When we did what they would have produced for jobs if they had been warehousing, it was less than 2 dozen. And then when you look at the average pay for those jobs, and this is how I think it impacts your students, the average pay was in about the 40 to 45% for those warehousing jobs versus the manufacturing jobs. And I think that it's hard to put an exact, like how does it impact an individual student? That's harder for me in my world. I haven't been asked to do that math before, but I'll think about it because you've asked it.
I appreciate that. So basically, Vice President Miller, she acknowledged that our students have been benefiting from scholarships, internships, and on-job training. Do we have numbers of how many students have been impacted by scholarships?
And I just, sorry, so I just want to just jump in. I'm saying the new businesses that are being attracted, that's what they've been talking to Dr. Bonison about with the Workforce Alliance. So I just want to make sure that that you heard, that I was clarifying that.
Okay.
Sorry.
I had a point that I was supposed to make, but I knew I would gone along on a few things. But part of the reason why we're caring about this was in the meeting with Dr. Bonison just Monday of this week and other education providers in the region, was that we want to attract more employers into the Lee Summit EDC. A lot of our members today are people in the buildings and trades and people that get involved in the real estate side. We want to make sure that we're getting the large employers too, so that we have a better answer to what you just said. It's exactly how we can do better is by having more manufacturers and other large employers so that we can give you numbers on that. Right now, our members that support our work are not as, there are some few big employers and they're important investors, but we want more of those in the room so that we can directly work with Dr. Bonison and people like him and the other educational partners that we have.
Okay, and my final question, thank you. Are we tracking how many of these new jobs are actually LSR7 families?
We don't have a requirement to ask them to do that, and the Lee Summit EDC doesn't have we don't have a hammer to force someone to tell us where their employers live or how many children they have. So no, we don't. I have seen requirements for local workforce requirements that cities, municipalities can put on those things. But there's no, when we look at, but we can look at is going back to the census numbers. You look at the ACS census numbers and we can start to see the correlation between how many people are in these sectors versus how many people live in Lee Summit. I know one today because I looked at the numbers. We look at the finance line of people working in finance. Most of those people are in the lowest, the highest paid on this bar, okay? So finance and management. Just today, we saw numbers that said in the last, I think it was 10 years, we had our two interns, one of them put together these numbers. In finance, we were growing at about a 10% higher number of jobs in Lee Summit. I think it was 11.3%. So you compare that to how many people in the same time moved to Lee Summit that are in that business. So we still haven't created enough jobs in finance for one-to-one for people, everybody who lives here. We got more people who live here in finance than we do have jobs in finance. But those are the kinds of numbers by using that we can make correlations to answer your question, but I can't tell you exactly how many students are impacted in those households, if that makes sense.
Thank you for sharing what you have with us today. I know that in our consent agenda, we're going to be giving you all another $25,000 check. I would just like to encourage you to just take note of the things that I brought up today.
Yes, of course.
And the next time that you all come before us, I would like to see some of those metrics presented to the board. Sure. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks, guys. We appreciate all you've done, and we appreciate you coming back in to share with us your progress.
Thank you.